What's up everyone, it's Endymion, and it's been a minute since we talked about Baldur's Gate 3, and how the entire industry dogpiled because it was a game that bucked the modern gaming trends of today. We've been told not to expect Baldur's Gate level releases from any studio for years, and that its existence is a once-in-a-lifetime RPG. But according to one game journalist, there might be another reason why BG3 was able to achieve what it set out to do. That brings us to an article from Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, who I would argue is one of the last actual game journalists in the industry, because he actually gets scoops, interviews entire studios, and, does real gaming journalism. Unlike Polygon, for example, who recently had an article titled "Genshin Impact Covers Up the Booties of Its Boy Toys." Yeah, I think the general consensus that the majority of gaming journalism is trash is pretty much sadly true at this point. Anyway, back to Jason Schreier. He published a news article around BG3, and claims the reason the game is what it is because Larian Studios is a privately owned company. Jason says that Larian is able to offer a game like BG3 because they uniquely sit in a position that allows them to not worry about the politics, or the financial tug-of-wars that publicly traded companies often have to deal with. This all comes down to Larian's owner Sven Vick, who seems like one of the biggest nerds you've ever seen in your life, but in a good way. The dude oozes his geeky love for everything gaming and entertainment, even donning a suit of knight armor while surrounded by his employees as he talks about Baldur's Gate. The thing is that the bulk of Larian's shares are owned by Sven and his wife, but Sven is in the unique position where he's also the director of games like Baldur's Gate 3 as well. Jason says that this puts Sven Vick in a very unique position, because he can make any creative decision he wishes on the games his company makes without fear of financial pressure from outside sources. Basically, he's like a kid in a candy store where he's able to make whatever decisions he wants and literally no one can tell him that he can't do it. But instead of this unique position resulting in a potential mega asshole dickhead of an ego someone would likely obtain due to this, Sven is just a nice guy, and it just gives him the freedom to make dope shit with people that he loves. It said later in the article that Sven doesn't have to worry about the financials of his company because obviously others do it for him, so he's able to fully focus on the creation of the games that Larian makes. This is also why Baldur's Gate 3 embraces being a fully priced feature-complete game, as Jason writes. This allows Sven to push back against suggestions that might be better for revenue but worse for his creative vision. Like when someone tells him Larian should be embracing business models that would in theory earn the company greater profits. To which Sven replies, "That would affect the type of games we want to make, that's not what I want to do." This shows and proves that Larian Studios is one of the only big AAA developers that actually gives a shit about creative vision and the player experience. When you compare their vision to other games, it becomes incredibly clear just how rare this is these days. Diablo 4, for example, purposely makes everything take longer to do. Like how teleporting out of a dungeon takes just a few more seconds than it should. That things like having an unlimited inventory would be something Blizzard could implement. But by not giving you an infinite inventory, it causes you to have to stop and delete or sell old items. This is only being done not for your convenience, it's being done to artificially increase your time spent in-game to make Blizzard's analytics look better than they actually are. So when they present their player engagement numbers to investors, they can claim how players spend so much time in-game on their products. But like I said, it's all a fabricated outcome by nickel and diming you not only from its premium cash shop, but your literal time as well. It's all done to inflate numbers because unlike Larian, Activision Blizzard is a publicly traded company. And it's because of this that predatory practices are used on purpose when they make games. This is why many AAA games echo the same popular trends like Battle Royale, cash shops, premium battle passes, and things like Day 1 DLC. Or in games like Diablo or Destiny's case, making simple actions take longer on purpose so analytics look better than they are. This is also why many AAA games feel homogeneous and take extreme measures to ensure little to no risk-taking is involved. This is why for years now, many of Ubisoft's games feel generic. They're all open world, always online games with cash shops and seasons. Just look at the new Avatar game, for example. It's just Far Cry with an Avatar skin, basically. Because it's a safe model that they know works. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up having a cash shop too. Or even Star Wars Outlaws, which is basically Watch Dogs in the Star Wars universe. When I saw the trailer for both of these games, it didn't surprise me at all, because they look and likely play just like the rest of Ubisoft's games. This is also why Ubisoft doesn't make smaller games anymore, because they only see value in games they can monetize over long periods of time. It's why you'll never see another Child of Light from them, unfortunately. Even games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which isn't even online or has multiplayer, still has a premium cash shop to further monetize its player base. And in terms of Diablo 4's current first season, there are no new armor sets available in-game, cosmetic-wise. Every new set cosmetic-wise is locked behind the money shop, with even new unique weapons and armor featured in the season adopting the looks of older gear but with new names. They are literally money-gating every single new look behind paywalls. They refuse to give players even an inch of new looks without them opening their wallets. This is the absolute state of modern gaming, unfortunately. These predatory practices exist because companies have been proven by player behavior that it's the right thing to do because people keep buying it. Take for example the recent Red Dead Redemption port for Switch and PS4. The game has no changes whatsoever. It's literally the same game as it was when it released, but it's now just playable on more modern hardware. Yet even then, it's only $20 less of the premium pricing of a new game like Baldur's Gate 3. It's the epitome of laziness on Rockstar's part. Yet even though the port is lazy, this didn't stop customers from buying it, with Red Dead Redemption's port skyrocketing to the top of the PlayStation Store. In fact, it was only behind EA's newest sports title, but quickly overtook it for first place. Again, this game has no improvements when compared to the original game. They simply re-released it and charged a premium price for it. And now that people have bought it, this will just make future remasters or ports even lazier. Because by buying this game in its original state, you're telling these huge companies that they don't need to remaster or update their games in order for you to buy them. They can just release the same game at 30 frames per second. They just have to copy and paste and people will just buy it again. As much as players out there yearn for their money to be respected by publishers, their actions are oftentimes moronic and they go against what they preach. You could have had a premium updated version of Red Dead, but now that'll definitely never happen. And I fully expect many other older games to get re-released now with nothing changed and will also cost almost as much as games do these days. This is in a lot of ways a situation created by and financed by the very customers that complain that they're being taken advantage of, is what I'm saying. If Red Dead's port flopped, it would have told these companies they actually need to respect their customer base, but now it'll just get even worse. Compared to say Valhalla or Red Dead, Jason Schreier continues by saying Baldur's Gate 3 is full of risks, making it the anti-AAA game. It's got a complicated rule set, a battle system that isn't exactly the most popular amongst modern gaming crowds, and it has so many branching paths that it's very likely most players won't even see everything in one playthrough. Which is another thing modern game devs hate doing, is making many different outcomes and paths. Because it risks companies wasting money and dev time on making content many players won't likely see. This is why so many AAA games are very hand-holding, like God of War or The Last of Us. They want to ensure that what they actually spend time on, the player is guaranteed to see. But in return, it makes the games, like I said, very linear and dev-guided, which I personally don't really like myself. Jason claims the reason many companies and studios can't do what Larian does is because of their privatized ownership. The very concept of a publicly traded company means the investors that fund the projects have quotas and expectations that must be met. If Electronic Arts or Activision miss quarterly quotas, it'll land the CEO and its board into a shitstorm. This likely also explains why so many games are oftentimes released before they're actually ready. While waiting a few months into the next quarter when the game would be finished would be better for consumers, so this is likely why a game you're excited for gets released, broken, and unfinished. It's not being done because the devs want it that way, but because the investors want the games they paid to make get released by certain earning thresholds. So this is why so many games release unfinished or full of bugs. You can basically chalk up the absolute state of modern gaming in one word really well, which is of course greed. It's always been greed, unfortunately. But in Larian's case, since it's privately owned, Sven and his wife who own the company don't really need to meet some investors' demands. As long as payroll is paid on time, Larian Studios can theoretically take their time when they make their games. And release them when they want to. It truly shows that Larian Studios is the anti-AAA game studio, where they can take their time making weird stuff and have fun doing it. Other companies are working their studios like exhausted cattle. making them sacrifice goodwill with their customer base in the hopeful gains of short-term profits. As Jason Schreier puts it, their job security and bonuses are tied to growth targets, not sustainability. And this is a very good summarization of why modern gaming is so broken and screwed up. Many of these games aren't being made for the sake of fun or art. They are simply products designed to eat away your time and money to feed greedy investors. Diablo 4 and even Destiny 2, let's be real, are prime examples of this philosophy. As Jason ends his article, he puts it perfectly that Larian, thanks to a unique combination of talent and luck, has positioned itself as the best of both worlds. The budget and scale of a publicly traded company without any of the absurd demands. All in all, a really great article from an actual games journalist, so kudos to Jason Schreier on that one. You guys should go follow him on Twitter if you want to see more of his stuff. But this has of course not stopped others in games from saying Baldur's Gate 3 should not be what people look for in games. One of these people is Sean, who works for Evolve as an account executive. He said, "Please put some thought into before you proclaim this as what AAA should be moving forward. 6 years and 400 plus people with insane funding due to the IP have given BG3 a big boost. It's truly unrealistic to expect this on a regular basis." To which Larian Studios director of publishing replied, "What funding?" Unsurprisingly, Sean didn't respond because Larian's publishing director just killed his whole narrative. And he's right, because when it comes to making games based on IPs like Dungeons & Dragons, it's usually all tied to an open games license. Basically, Larian Studios pays Dungeons & Dragons owners Wizards of the Coast in order to use the IP to make the game they made. So a lot of these people saying Larian had X amount of help and we can't do that aren't only lying, they're wrong as well. Thankfully, there are devs out there congratulating Larian and are saying out loud that the game is a triumph of game design. One of these is Spiderweb Software founder Jeff Vogel, who says Baldur's Gate 3's success is amazing and good news for RPG developers. Because successful RPGs make more RPG fans, which is absolutely right. Then you have legendary devs like Mike Laidlaw, who's made and worked on games like Mass Effect and Dragon Age, who just praises the hell out of Baldur's Gate 3. He says, "If you ask me, Baldur's Gate 3 is a triumph. The through line of robust world interactions and fun turn-based combat is obvious from the Divinity Original Sin games. And the way the team have managed to weave the themes and even some of the characters of the original into an all-new story is very impressive." So yeah, having the guy who made Dragon Age praise your game is all the praise you need in my opinion. By the way, if anyone at BioWare is watching this, please remaster Dragon Age Origins. Love you, thanks. But this of course hasn't stopped Xbox fanboys from trying to pit Starfield against Baldur's Gate, claiming since Starfield is already available to preload but BG3 isn't on PlayStation that it's somehow worse. And like the Grim Reaper, here comes Larian's publishing director again in for the kill saying, "We want people to have the latest patches because that seems like the consumer-friendly thing to do. It's not very complicated." This dude is just out here killing people. I love to see it. And this has even led to legions of fans asking Larian to remake Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 in the style of 3, which just shows you that when you meet expectations, people are ready and willing to give you their money in response. And as it stands right now, that's where we're at with Baldur's Gate 3, and this entire discussion surrounding whether more games can live up to it. Modern gaming is in a weird place lately, but I truly do believe the industry is moving towards change. Hopefully its existence helps shape the future of RPGs to come, but I hope more than anything its success proves that a game can be successful and profitable without losing goodwill with your consumer base, due to things like pushing microtransactions and battle passes constantly. We need more games like Baldur's Gate, not less. Hopefully this video helped you understand just how it came into existence and how the love of gaming is not a dying art. I look forward to the future of RPG games. I just hope publishers and companies learn the right things and replicate what works here, because the last thing we need is more live service games. As always, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe if you'd like to, like the video to help the channel out, and have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.